The crimson glow of the nebula painted everything in shades of rust, and amber as Kira Voss maneuvered her salvage ship, the Wandering Star, through the treacherous asteroid field. Her practiced hands danced across the control panels, years of experience reading the gravitational pulls and electromagnetic interference that made this region of space both profitable and deadly for salvage runners like herself. "Come on, baby," she murmured to her ship, feeling the familiar vibration of the engines as they strained against a particularly dense pocket of asteroids just a little further. Her scanner chirped, indicating metallic debris ahead. Kira's heart quickened not from fear, but from the familiar thrill of a potential score. Out here in the Outer Rim, where civilization was just a distant memory and law enforcement even more distant, salvage was the difference between survival and becoming another ghost ship. Drifting in the void, the wreckage materialized through the swirling cosmic dust, a sleek courier vessel, its hull split open like a broken shell. The ship's design was unfamiliar, bearing no corporate markings or alliance insignia. That could mean trouble, but it could also mean a payday that would keep her flying for months. Kira had learned long ago to trust her instincts, and right now they were screaming caution. But her fuel reserves were running dangerously low, and her last 3 salvage runs had yielded nothing but scrap metal barely worth the effort. She needed this score. "Standard sweep," she announced to her ship's AI, though talking to the computer had become more habit than necessity. During her years of solitary work, check for life signs, energy signatures, anything that might bite me in the ass. The sensors hummed for several seconds before responding in the ship's neutral voice. "Single life sign detected. Weak but stable. No active weapons systems. Hull breach in cargo bay suggests rapid decompression. 1 survivor, in Kira's experience. That usually meant either someone lucky enough to reach an emergency pod, or someone tough enough to outlast whatever had killed their crewmates. Either way, it complicated things. Space law, what little existed out here, technically required her to render aid to survivors. But survivors also asked questions, and questions led to complications Kira couldn't afford. She studied the wreckage through her view screen, noting the precise cuts along the hull. This wasn't an accident or system failure. Someone had attacked the ship, surgically disabled it. The work was too clean for pirates, too efficient for random raiders. This had the hallmarks of a professional hit. "Damn it," Kira whispered, her decision already made. She couldn't leave someone to die, regardless of what trouble it might bring her. The docking procedure took 20 minutes of careful maneuvering. The courier ship's airlock was damaged but functional, though Kira had to override several safety protocols to make the connection. She pulled on her environment suit and grabbed her sidearm just because someone needed rescuing. Didn't mean they wouldn't try to kill her afterward. The interior of the ship was a disaster. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows through corridors filled with floating debris. The gravity generators were offline, leaving Kira to navigate using magnetic boots and handholds. She followed her scanner toward the life sign, which appeared to be coming from what had been the ship's bridge. She found him floating, unconscious, near the navigation console, somehow still strapped into the pilot's chair despite the violence that had torn through the rest of the ship. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 30, with dark hair and strong features marred by a fresh cut across his left cheek. His flight suit bore no identification, but Kira could see the quality of the fabric. This wasn't some freight hauler or mining vessel crew. "Hey," she called softly, checking his pulse through the suit's biometric sensors, strong and steady, though his breathing was shallow. "Can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open, revealing an intense green gaze that seemed to focus on her with surprising clarity for someone who'd been unconscious in a derelict ship. When he spoke, his voice was hoarse but controlled. Where am I?" "You're in what's left of your ship," Kira replied, helping him unbuckle from the chair. "I'm Kira Voss, salvage runner. Looks like someone really wanted you dead. Any idea who?" He started to shake his head, then winced as if the movement caused pain. I can't remember. There was an attack, explosions." His eyes widened suddenly. "Naya, where's Naya?" The urgency in his voice sent a chill through Kira. "Who's Naya? She's just a child. We were traveling together. Please, you have to help me find her." Kira's scanner had only detected one life sign, which meant either this Naya hadn't survived the attack, or she was somewhere the sensors couldn't detect her. Given the extensive damage to the ship, the first option seemed more likely. But the desperate hope in the man's eyes made her want to check every compartment anyway. "What's your name?" she asked as she helped him to the airlock. He paused, and for a moment his expression was confused, almost lost. "Jackson," he said finally. "Jackson Reed." Something about the way he said it made Kira suspect it might not be his real name. But she'd used plenty of false identities herself over the years. Everyone in the Outer Rim was running from something. They were halfway to her ship when her scanner detected a second, much fainter life sign coming from what appeared to be a storage compartment deep in the ship's lower section. Kira's heart sank. If someone was trapped down there, they wouldn't have much time left. "Naya," Jackson breathed, somehow hearing the scanner's faint beep despite the interference in the damaged ship. "We need to move fast," Kira warned. "Life support in that section is failing." They made their way through twisted corridors and past shattered bulkheads, following the signal deeper into the ship. The storage compartment was barely accessible, its entrance partially blocked by debris. Kira had to use her plasma cutter to clear a path wide enough for them to squeeze through. Inside, huddled behind a stack of supply containers, they found her. Naya couldn't have been more than 8 years old, with the kind of pale, ethereal beauty that suggested mixed heritage from several different human colonies. Her silver hair caught the emergency lighting like starlight, and when she looked up at them, her eyes were the deepest blue Kira had ever seen. Not quite human normal, but not entirely alien either. "Jackson," the child cried, launching herself into his arms with the kind of relief that only comes from facing death and finding safety instead. Jackson held her tightly, his own relief palpable. "It's okay, little star, we're safe now." Kira watched the reunion with a mixture of warmth and concern. The way they interacted suggested a deep bond, but there was something else, a careful protectiveness in Jackson's manner that spoke of responsibility rather than family ties. And there was something about the child herself that seemed unusual. Her eyes held an intelligence that seemed older than her years, and there was a quality to her presence that made the hair on Kira's arms stand up. "We need to go," Kira said, checking her scanner. "Life support down here won't last much longer." As they made their way back to the airlock, Naya walking between Jackson and Kira with surprising steadiness for someone who'd just survived a shipwreck. Kira found herself wondering what exactly she'd gotten herself into. To survivors with no clear background, found in a ship that had been professionally destroyed, one of them a child with distinctly unusual features. But as they reached the safety of the wandering star, and she watched Jackson gently help Naya out of her emergency suit, Kira realized she didn't care about the complications. Something about these two had awakened a protective instinct she'd thought long buried. Whatever trouble they were running from, whatever secrets they carried, she was committed now. "Welcome aboard," she said, sealing the airlock behind them. "It's not much, but it's home." Jackson met her eyes, and in them she saw gratitude mixed with something deeper, a recognition of kindness that spoke of someone who hadn't experienced much of it recently. "Thank you," he said simply, "for everything." As Kira set course away from the asteroid field, she couldn't shake the feeling that her life had just taken a turn towards something far more significant than salvage runs and survival. The stars stretched out before them, vast and full of possibilities. But for the first time in years, Kira found herself looking forward to what lay ahead rather than simply running from what lay behind. 3 days out from the asteroid field, Kira's ship drifted in the shadow of Epsilon Station, a ramshackle trading post built into a hollowed-out asteroid. The station existed in the gray area between legitimate commerce and outright piracy, making it the perfect place to lay low while Jackson recovered and they figured out their next move. Kira watched him from the galley doorway as he sat in the main cabin, staring out at the stars with an expression of deep concentration. His memories had been returning in fragments, flashes of faces, snippets of conversation, the feeling of running without remembering what he was running from. The cut on his cheek had healed, leaving only a thin line that somehow made his already striking features even more compelling. "Still nothing?" she asked, settling into the chair across from him with 2 cups of synthetic coffee. Jackson accepted the cup gratefully, their fingers brushing in the exchange. The contact sent an unexpected warmth through Kira's chest, a reminder of how long it had been since she'd shared her ship with anyone, let alone someone who made her hyper-aware of every casual touch. "Pieces," he said, his voice carrying the frustration of a man trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. "I remember being on a corporate courier run, carrying data packets between systems. But the details," he shook his head, "it's like trying to hold onto smoke." "Memory loss after trauma isn't uncommon," Kira offered, though she suspected there might be more to it than simple shock. "Give it time." Before Jackson could respond, Naya appeared in the doorway, having emerged from the small cabin where she'd been resting. The child moved with an uncanny grace, as if she could sense the ship's movements before they happened. Over the past few days, Kira had noticed other things about her, the way she sometimes tilted her head, as if listening to sounds no one else could hear. The way she seemed to know which systems needed attention before the diagnostics showed any problems. "The station wants to talk to us," Naya announced, her young voice carrying an odd certainty. Kira frowned, checking her communication panel. No incoming signals showed on any frequency. "How do you—" The comm system crackled to life before she could finish the question. "Unknown vessel. This is Epsilon Station Control. Please identify yourself and state your business." Jackson shot Naya a sharp look, but the child just shrugged with the kind of innocence that wasn't quite convincing. Kira keyed, the response giving the station a false ship ID she kept for situations like this. "Acknowledged, Star Runner. Bay 7 is available for docking. Standard rates apply." As Kira began the docking sequence, she couldn't shake the feeling that Naya had somehow known about the incoming transmission before. It happened when she glanced at Jackson. She saw her own suspicion reflected in his eyes. "We need supplies," Kira said, focusing on practical matters: food, fuel, maybe some spare parts for the nav computer. "But we keep a low profile. I'll come with you," Jackson offered. "No." The word came out sharper than Kira intended, and she softened her tone. "You stay with Naya. Whatever happened to your ship, whoever did it, they might still be looking for you. Better to keep you out of sight until we know more." Something flickered in Jackson's expression, gratitude mixed with frustration at being protected. "Kira, I don't want you taking risks for us. It's not just for you," she replied, surprised by her own honesty. "I've been alone on this ship for 3 years. Having people to care about again, it changes things." Their eyes met and held, the air between them charged with unspoken possibilities. Kira found herself cataloging the details of his face, the way his green eyes seemed to shift color in different light, the small scar above his left eyebrow, the way he looked at her as if she might be the most important person in the galaxy. The moment was broken by the gentle thud of the ship connecting to the station's docking clamps. Epsilon Station's main concourse was a maze of market stalls, cantinas, and repair shops carved into the asteroid's living rock. Kira moved through the crowds with practiced ease, picking up the supplies they needed while keeping her ears open for any talk of corporate ships or bounty hunters in the area. She was haggling with a parts dealer over the price of a replacement power coupling when she overheard a conversation at the next stall that made her blood run cold, offering serious credits for information on a courier ship that went missing in the Crimson Nebula region. Korvik's people have been asking questions all over the sector. Kira's hand moved instinctively to the blaster at her hip. Thane Korvik was a name that carried weight in the darker corners of the Galaxy, a corporate enforcer known for his ruthless efficiency and complete lack of mercy. If he was hunting Jackson and Naya, they were in more trouble than she'd imagined. She completed her purchases quickly and made her way back to the ship, her mind racing. As she entered the main cabin, she found Jackson and Naya huddled around the navigation console, the child's small hands resting on the interface panel. "What are you doing?" Kira asked, noticing that several system displays were showing data streams she didn't recognize. Naya looked up with those 2 knowing blue eyes. helping Jackson remember. The ship's computer has records, but they're encrypted. I can talk to them. She interfaces directly with electronic systems. Jackson explained, his voice tight with concern. I don't understand how, but she can access data that should be impossible to reach, as if to demonstrate. Naya pressed her palms flat against the console. The screens around them flickered, and suddenly the cabin was filled with holographic displays showing shipping manifests, travel routes, and encrypted files that Kira's systems shouldn't have been able to access. I was carrying proof, Jackson whispered, staring at the displays as memories crashed back into place. Corporate documents, testimony from survivors. They wiped out an entire colony to cover up a failed terraforming project, and I had evidence that could bring down the executives responsible, including Thane Korvik. Naya added quietly, he's the one who gave the orders. He's been hunting down anyone who knows the truth. Kira felt the pieces falling into place with terrifying clarity. That's why they attacked your ship. That's why Korvik's people are asking questions at every station in the sector. Jackson stood, abruptly, running his hands through his hair. I've put you in danger, both of you. I should leave. Find another way, don't. Kira caught his arm, surprised by the force of her own reaction. Don't you dare think about leaving. He turned to face her, and she could see the conflict in his eyes, the desire to protect them warring with his need for the connection they'd found together. Kira, you don't understand what you're getting into. Korvik doesn't just kill people who get in his way. He destroys everything they've ever cared about. Then we make sure he doesn't get the chance, she replied, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. We're stronger together than apart, all three of us. Naya looked up from the console where she'd been silently processing data. There's something else, she said, her young voice carrying in weight that sent chills down Kira's spine. I'm not just able to interface with computers. My people, we were telepathic. The colony that was destroyed, it was our last settlement. I'm the only one left. The revelation hung in the air like a physical presence. Jackson knelt beside Naya's chair, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. That's why Korvik wants her dead, he said quietly. She's not just a witness. She's living proof that an entire telepathic species was genocided for corporate profits. Kira looked between them, the man whose broken memories were reassembling, into a picture of corporate horror, and the child who carried the weight of being the last of her kind. Her heart ached for both of them, but more than that, she felt a fierce protectiveness rising within her. Then we make sure the truth gets out, she said, moving to the pilot's chair and beginning startup procedures. But first, we get out of here. If Korvik's people are asking questions, it won't be long before they trace us to this station. As the wandering star undocked and slipped back into the void, Kira caught Jackson watching her with an expression of wonder and gratitude that made her heart skip. Why? He asked softly. Why risk everything for us? Kira met his gaze in the reflection of the viewport, seeing her own feelings mirrored in his eyes. Because some things are worth fighting for. And because, she paused, surprised by her own vulnerability. Because I think I'm falling in love with you. Both of you. This family we've accidentally created. The admission hung between them, honest and raw and terrifying in its implications. But as Jackson's hand found hers and Naya smiled from her place at the console, Kira knew she'd made the right choice. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 2 weeks later, the wandering star drifted in the shadow of Helix Prime's outer moon, hidden among the debris field of an ancient battle. Kira had chosen the location carefully close enough to the inhabited system to access communication networks, far enough away to avoid casual detection. They needed to plan their next move, and Jackson insisted they had to find a way to broadcast the evidence before Korvik's reach extended any further. The cramped confines of the ship had brought them closer together in ways Kira hadn't expected. She found herself memorizing the sound of Jackson's laugh when Naya told stories about her people's ancient customs, treasuring the moments when his hand would find hers during their shared meals. The attraction between them had deepened into something more profound, a partnership built on trust and shared purpose that made her heart race whenever their eyes met. The data needs to reach someone with enough influence to act on it, Jackson was saying, studying the holographic displays that Naya had coaxed from the ship's computer. A planetary governor, maybe, or someone in the Trade Commission who isn't in Korvic's pocket. Kira nodded, though her attention was divided between the tactical discussion and the way the starlight caught the silver threads in Jackson's dark hair. I might know someone, an old contact who runs independent news feeds across the rim systems. Can we trust them? Naya asked from her perch on the navigation console, her young face serious with the weight of adult concerns. We'll have to, Kira replied. But first we need to. The proximity alarm cut through her words, its harsh tone filling the cabin. Kira's blood went cold as she recognized the energy signature appearing on her screens. She knew that ship had flown alongside it for 2 years before everything went wrong. What is it? Jackson asked, moving to her side with the fluid grace that had become achingly familiar. Trouble, Kira whispered, her fingers dancing across the controls as she tried to mask their emissions. It's the Nighthawk. That's Zara's ship. The name hung in the air like a curse. Kira had told them about Zara Knight during one of their late-night conversations. Her former partner, the woman who had shared her bed and her dreams of making a better life among the stars. The partnership had ended badly, leaving Kira with trust issues that had taken Jackson weeks of gentle patience to overcome. Former partner, Jackson said, understanding immediate. The bounty hunter. She's good, Kira admitted, watching the sleek Predator-class ship prowl through the debris field with practiced efficiency. Too good. If she's here, it means Korvic hired the best. Naya tilted her head in that way that meant she was listening to something the rest of them couldn't hear. She's scanning for us, but there's something else. She's conflicted. Her thoughts are loud with old memories. Before Kira could ask what that meant, the communication system crackled to life. Hello, Kira. Zara's voice was exactly as Kira remembered, smooth, confident, with just a hint of the accent from the mining colonies where they'd both grown up. I know you're out there. We need to talk. Jackson's hand found Kira's shoulder, offering silent support. Don't respond, he murmured. There's no guarantee she's alone. But Kira was already reaching for the calm switch. Drawn by the complex mix of emotions Zara's voice stirred in her. Hello, Zara. It's been a while. Not long enough. Apparently, there was pain beneath the professional coolness, old wounds that time hadn't healed. You always did have a talent for finding trouble. Mind if I come aboard? We have business to discuss. Kira looked at Jackson, seeing her own uncertainty reflected in his green eyes. They both knew this could be a trap, but they also knew that running would only postpone the inevitable confrontation. Come alone, Kira said finally. Any tricks, and this conversation ends with plasma fire. 20 minutes later, Zara Knight stepped through the airlock, and Kira was struck by how little her former partner had changed. Tall and athletic, with the kind of predatory grace that came from years of hunting dangerous prey. Zara still moved like she owned whatever space she occupied. Her dark hair was shorter now, and there were new scars along her left temple. But her eyes were the same intense brown that had once made Kira forget about everything else in the galaxy. You look good, Zara said, her gaze taking in the cozy domesticity of the ship's main cabin. Playing house suits you. The barb was designed to hurt, and it did. Kira felt Jackson tense beside her, his protective instincts flaring. What do you want, Zara? What I always want. Credits and a clean conscience. Zara's smile was sharp as a blade. Korvic's offering enough to buy a new ship and a quiet retirement. All I have to do is bring him your boyfriend and the kid. And me, Kira asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. You're not part of the contract. Walk away now. And this doesn't have to involve you. The offer hung between them, loaded with the weight of their shared history. Kira could feel Jackson watching her, trusting her to make the right choice even as fear flickered in his eyes. Naya remained silent, but her presence was a steady reminder of what was at stake. You know I can't do that, Kira said quietly. Can't or won't, Zara's voice carried genuine curiosity. You've always been too soft, Kira, too willing to risk everything for people who'll only disappoint you in the end. Is that what I did? Kira asked, old pain surfacing despite her efforts to keep it buried. Disappoint you. For a moment, Zara's professional mask slipped, revealing the hurt that still festered beneath. You chose your principles over us, over me. Some things are more important than being right. Some things are more important than being safe, Kira countered. You taught me that, remember? Back when you still believed in something besides your next payday. The accusation hit home. Zara's jaw tightened, and when she spoke again, her voice was carefully controlled. Believing in things gets you killed out here. I learned that lesson the hard way. From who? Jackson spoke for the first time since Zara had boarded, his voice steady despite the tension crackling through the cabin. From Korvik. What did he promise you besides credits? Zara's eyes narrowed as she studied him. You're not what I expected. Korvik made you sound like some kind of terrorist fanatic. I'm just someone who believes the truth matters, Jackson replied. Even when it's inconvenient for corporate profits. Truth is a luxury, Zara said, but there was less conviction in her voice now. Survival is a necessity. Naya chose that moment to speak, her young voice cutting through the adult posturing with startling clarity. You loved her once. She loved you too. That kind of connection doesn't just disappear. Zara's composure cracked, and for an instant, Kira saw the woman she'd once known passionate, idealistic, capable of breathtaking tenderness. Kid, you don't know what you're talking about. I know that Korvik's people killed my family. Naya continued, her blue eyes never leaving Zara's face. I know that he's hunting me because I can prove what he did. And I know that you're not really here for the money. The silence that followed was heavy with unspoken truths. Kira watched the conflict play across Zara's features, hope and old love warring with years of accumulated cynicism. The bounty stands, Zara said finally, but her heart wasn't in the words. I have 48 hours to deliver you to Korvik's people, or the contract goes to someone else. Someone who won't care about old friendships. She turned toward the airlock, then paused. For what it's worth, Kira, I'm glad you found something worth fighting for. I hope it's enough to keep you alive. As the airlock sealed behind her, Kira felt Jackson's arms wrap around her from behind, offering comfort and strength in equal measure. We need to move, she said, leaning into his warmth. 48 hours to disappear before the next hunter finds us together, he asked, his breath warm against her ear. Always, she replied, turning in his arms to meet his eyes. Whatever happens, we face it together. The kiss that followed was desperate and tender, a promise sealed in the shadow of approaching danger. Epsilon 7 was a mining colony that existed in the gray spaces between corporate control and outright rebellion, built into the asteroid's core. Its tunnels and chambers housed a population of workers, refugees, and dissidents who had found common cause in their shared desire to remain hidden from corporate oversight. It was exactly the kind of place where someone could broadcast a signal that would reach across the galaxy. Before anyone could stop it, Kira guided the wandering star through the colony's maze of docking bays, following coordinates that Jackson had somehow remembered from his fragmented past. The 48 hours Zara had given them were nearly up, and they all knew that time was running out. There. Jackson pointed to a bay marked only with a series of numbers. Leon Sato operates out of maintenance level 7. If anyone can help us get this information out, it's her. Leon Sato turned out to be a woman in her 50s with steel gray hair and eyes that held the kind of hard-won wisdom that came from years of fighting impossible odds. Her underground operation occupied a converted mining chamber filled with communication equipment, data servers, and transmission arrays that looked like they'd been salvaged from a dozen different sources. Jackson Reed, she said as they entered. Her domain, her voice carrying a mixture of surprise and concern. I thought you were dead. Korvik's people have been spreading word that your ship was destroyed weeks ago. Close enough to true, Jackson replied grimly. Leon, we need your help. The evidence I was carrying is exactly what we've been waiting for, she finished, her eyes lighting up with fierce satisfaction. Proof of the Kepler colony genocide. Documentation of corporate involvement. Names, dates, everything. Kira watched the exchange with growing understanding. This wasn't a chance meeting or desperate gamble. Jackson had been part of something larger. A network of people working to expose corporate crimes that the authorities were to corrupt or to frighten to prosecute. Your resistance, she said, The pieces falling into place. We prefer concerned citizens, Leon replied with a wry smile. But yes, Jackson was supposed to deliver that data to us 3 weeks ago. When he didn't show up, I had to protect Naya, Jackson said, his hand finding the child's shoulder. She's not just evidence, she's family. Something in his tone made Kira look at him more closely. There was a depth of pain in his voice that spoke of more than just the responsibility of a guardian. As if sensing her scrutiny, Jackson met her eyes. There's something I haven't told you, he said quietly, about Naya, about why I was really carrying that data. Naya looked up at him with those ancient blue eyes. You can tell them, Jackson. They should know. He knelt beside the child, his expression soft with a love that Kira now realized was deeper than she'd understood. Naya isn't just the last survivor of her people. She's my daughter, not biologically, but in every way that matters. Her parents, they died in the first wave of attacks on Kepler Colony. They asked me to take care of her, to get her away from the violence. The revelation hit Kira like a physical blow, not because it changed how she felt about either of them, but because it made their bond even more precious. Jackson hadn't just been protecting a witness, he'd been protecting his child. The data we're carrying, Jackson continued, his voice rough with emotion. It includes testimony from Naya's parents, their last words, their hope that someday the truth would come out and their daughter would know that they died fighting for something that mattered. Leon cleared her throat, her professional demeanor softened by obvious emotion. Then we'd better make sure their sacrifice means something. How long do we have? As if summoned by her question, the colony's proximity alarms began to wail. Kira's blood went cold as she recognized the pattern. Multiple ships, military grade. Approaching fast. Korvik found us, she said, already moving toward the communication arrays. How long to broadcast the data? 10 minutes if everything goes perfectly, Leon replied, her fingers flying over the controls. 15 if we hit complications. We don't have 15 minutes, Jackson said grimly, studying the tactical display that showed Korvik's ships surrounding the colony. Maybe 5 before they breached the docking bays. Kira made a decision that surprised her with its clarity. Then, we buy you time. Jackson, can you help Leon with the broadcast? He understood immediately what she was proposing, and his face went pale. Kira, no, I'm not letting you face Korvik's people alone. You're not. She moved to him, framing his face with her hands. We do this together. You handle the technical side. I handle the tactical side, just like we've been doing since the day we met. The sound of explosions echoed through the colony's corridors, followed by the distinctive whine of plasma weapons. Korvik's forces had breached the outer defenses. I love you, Kira said, the words spilling out with desperate honesty. I need you to know that. In case, Jackson silenced her with a kiss that tasted of determination and fear, and absolute devotion. I love you too, both of you. We're going to get through this. The transmission is starting, Leon announced, her voice tight with concentration. Data packets are uploading to the relay network. 7 minutes to complete broadcast. The chamber's main entrance exploded inward, sending debris cascading across the floor. Through the smoke and flames, figures in corporate military gear advanced with professional precision. At their head walked Thane Korvik himself, a tall man with cold eyes and the kind of presence that made the air itself seem dangerous. Jackson Reed, he said, his voice carrying across the chaos like a judgment. You've caused me considerable inconvenience. Kira stepped between Korvik and the transmission array, her weapon steady despite the odds they faced. The truth has a way of being inconvenient. Korvik's smile was winter cold. Truth is whatever serves the greater good. The Kepler colony was a failed experiment. Shutting it down saved resources that could be used to benefit millions. You murdered children, Naya said, her young voice cutting through the adult posturing with devastating clarity. You murdered my family. I eliminated a genetic anomaly that posed a threat to normal human development, Korvik replied, without a flicker of remorse. Telepathic abilities in the wrong hands could destabilize entire governments. 5 minutes, Leon called out, never taking her attention from the transmission. The firefight that erupted was brutal and chaotic. Kira and Jackson fought with the coordination of partners who trusted each other absolutely, their movements complementing each other as they held the line against Korvac's forces. But they were outnumbered, and their defensive position was deteriorating rapidly. A plasma bolt caught Kira in the shoulder, spinning her round and sending her weapon skittering across the floor. As Korvac's soldiers closed in for the kill, Jackson threw himself between them and the woman he loved, taking a hit that should have been fatal. 2 minutes, Leon shouted, her voice barely audible over the weapon's fire. Naya suddenly stood, her small hands pressed against the nearest communication console. The air around her began to shimmer with an energy that made Kira's skin crawl. When the child spoke, her voice carried harmonics that seemed to bypass the ears and speak directly to the mind. Enough! Every electronic device in the chamber flickered and surged. Korvac's weapons powered down, their targeting systems scrambled by the telepathic interference. Emergency lighting strobed as Naya's abilities interacted with the colonies. Power grid. Broadcast complete, Leon announced with fierce satisfaction. The data is out there, spreading through every communication network in the sector. There's no stopping it now. Korvac's face twisted with rage as he realized his defeat. Without functional weapons, his soldiers fell back toward the entrance. But the corporate enforcer himself remained, his eyes fixed on Naya with undisguised hatred. This isn't over, he snarled. There are other ways to silence inconvenient truths. Not anymore, Jackson said, struggling to his feet with Kira's support. The galaxy knows what you did. Every system, every planet, every person who ever wondered what happened to Kepler Colony. Your corporate masters won't protect you. Now, as if to emphasize his point, Leon's communication arrays crackled to life with incoming transmissions from across the galaxy. News services, government officials, independent investigators all demanding answers, all asking questions that Korvac could no longer control. The man who had seemed so dangerous just moments before now looked like what he truly was, a middle manager whose usefulness had just expired. Without another word, he turned and fled, leaving behind only the smoking ruins of his authority. In the aftermath, as colony medics tended to their wounds and Leon coordinated with the flood of incoming communications, Kira found herself sitting beside Jackson and Naya in a quiet corner of the chamber. The adrenaline was fading, leaving behind the profound relief of survival and success. It's really over, Naya asked, her young voice heavy with exhaustion. The fighting is, Jackson replied, pulling both of them closer. The truth is out there now. People will know what happened to your parents, to your people. Their sacrifice will be remembered. Kira leaned into his warmth, marveling at how much her life had changed since that day in the asteroid field. So, what happens now? Jackson's answer was a kiss that tasted of hope and new beginnings.